cash is your primary financial growth metric. So that's my.
So I want to ask you about the second one, about the system.
Yeah.
It seems that when the systems are working really, really well, sometimes it's very hard for them to learn new things, to incorporate new understanding and ideas, and sometimes even unlearn some things they need to go through the years. So it seems that if you want to evolve, you need to be very flexible with that system. And what we call innovation is really growing that system to be mature and to fit what's going on with the market, with your customers, with whatever outside,
Yeah.
and not catching up all the time.
Agreed. Yeah. Complacency is a factor, right? We love the status quo. I'm a bit of a neuroscience geek, and there's something called status quo bias. We don't move forward because whatever we're in is more comfortable than the unknown and the uncertainty of the future. But that's really your job. So what I basically teach my leaders is your job is to fire yourself from the day to day as soon as you can. And depending on the size of your business, you can't necessarily fire yourself from the entirety of the day. But you should constantly be thinking about that, because as you grow, you want to be replacing those bits of what you do with better people who are better at it than you are. Especially, as an entrepreneur, we do lots of different things, and we certainly don't like all of them. And we certainly aren't as good at some as we are at others. So those things that you love, that really give you joy and energy, are things that you should be doing more often. So if you are a leader and you really want to grow your business, and hopefully that brings you joy, right? Really thinking about the future and how to predict it and how to make the lives of the two main constituencies in your business better: the people that work with you in your overall team, and then the people that you serve, right? Your customers. So I talk about that. You have to really think about firing yourself from day to day, because your job is to predict the future. And if you're predicting the future, then this complacency is taken care of generally, because you're constantly looking forward and you're seeing what differences, what's working well now, but what's coming down the road. So building resilience into your team is part of that. And we've had 3 existential economic crises in this century so far, with 9/11, and then 2008, and then of course COVID. And those that had cash in the bank, as I mentioned earlier, were able to at least potentially survive. I mean, this COVID is really odd. But those that built resilient teams, that's part of the system, right? Is your job is to push the decisions down to where they should be made. Your job is to create autonomy. Your job is to create an environment so people can run the business. And I like to say, if you left for 3 months, no one outside the business would know that you left. It just would run itself. So I think that's really important. It's not a will to challenge things. It's a habit. If you're constantly looking toward the future, you will stave off complacency.
Yeah. So how do you see, like right now, the COVID crisis challenging these leaders, and what have they done well, and what have they done not so well, and what should they learn in order to do it better?
Yeah. So, COVID is just an odd beast. Obviously, it affected pretty much everyone in the world, almost all at the same time. And it has shined a light on things that were always there, but weren't given proper attention, like people engaged at work and people enjoying what they do and really being excited to go to work. We're seeing this great resignation, or whatever you want to call this thing, as part of it, because people are waking up and saying, wow, I used to work to live. I used to live to work. Now I work to live. Right. So we used to, I like the saying that, I can't remember who said it. It was, we used to fit into the cracks of work our lives. Now we're fitting into the cracks of our lives, our work. Right. We're finding that, if you work at home, you can go do the soccer game at 3:00 and then go back and finish the day. But if you're in the office, you couldn't do that. And so we're seeing all these things. Those leaders that aren't seeing that, they aren't realizing that that's an issue. Like, I got to get them back in the office. I got to do these things, as opposed to, no, your job is to create a wonderful environment for people to help you realize your vision. It's not to oversee them and to make sure that they're doing things correctly, because that's not what we as human beings like. We like to be left to our own devices. Now, we also like to make sure, where are we going? We want some direction and some guidelines. So that's your job. So I think those are people that did that really understood that my job is to there's this, I don't know if you have this in Israel, but you probably do. It's probably all over, but we have bowling alleys. And when the kids go bowling, whether it's the candle pins, which are the small balls, which we use here in New England a lot, or the really big ones, they have these rails that go up. And it keeps the ball in play, right? And I sort of use that as my metaphors. Your job is to create the rails, right? And so you can do anything you want in here, but you can't do anything outside of here. If you think strongly that we should, then bring it to us, and we want to look at it, because maybe we built the rails too tightly. But that's your job, and so that's about creating standards. And I think you're going to ask me a question later about a leader that I really like, and so I'll bring him up now, and we'll talk more in detail. Alan Mulally is one of my favorite leaders. He is my favorite leader, not one of my favorite leaders. I think he is the best leader, at least we in the U.S. have had in 100 years or so. Why? He has this great saying, which is he says you got to love them up. He's talking about his people. You got to love the people up, but hold them to the standard. So your job is to create the standards. What are the standards? How do we do things here? What are the behaviors that are correct behaviors? Who are we? What is our identity? Why are we doing this? Why did we set this up to do? And what are we trying to accomplish when we're done? If you create, those are the guardrails, right? If you create those for people, you'd be amazed at how much they will